Welcome, everyone. As we learn the venerable limud of Chok Yisro for Yisro Yom Revi, day 4, Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. Ki lahem davar, when Moshe Rabbeinu said, when Klal Yisrael has a quarrel, bo'elai, and they come to me, v'shafarati, and I judge, bein ish uvein re'eyu, between a man and his friend, v'odati, and I inform them, es chukei elikim, the statutes of Hashem, es toraisav, and his laws. Kadav Elohim dina as Asan v'asi v'doin ano bein gavro bein chavrei u'modan Elohim yas kiyamaya dadinoi v'yas oraisei. And Rashi says ki ilem davar bo'elai misha yiyaloi davar, if they have a matter bo'elai, they come to me. Vayemer chaysei Moshe elav, and the father-in-law Moshe said to Moshe, it's not good what you are doing. Says Rashi, derech covered the Torah is giving him an honorific, he's giving him honor, the father-in-law of the king. Novel Tibal, you will get withered, you will get wearied. Gam ata, you, also you, Gam ha'amazeh, and this nation that has to stand by you, Asher imach, that is with you, ki kaved mimcha adav, this is too heavy a load for you to take care of. Lo yisuchel asau levadecha, you cannot do it alone, even with the help of Aaron, Chur, and the 70 Zakanim. As Rashi, first let's see the Targum. Mila tile af at af amohadein. You'll weary yourself out. Says Rashi, what's the lashon of novel tibol? Kitargumai, like it's interpreted. Ulashainai lashon kmisha, to be withered, plaistrir. Kamaive Allah navel, the leaf will wither. Kinaval Allah megefen, like the leaf withers from the vine. Shu kamish al yidei chamet, withers through the sun, val yidei kerach, or through the cold. V'koichai tosh, and its strength weakens, vanilla, and gets worn out. Gam ata, also yul rabbis Aaron v'chur v'shivim zakenim, Aaron and Chur and the 70 elders. Ki kaved mimcha, it's too heavy a job. Koiv doi rav yoisem mikoichacha. We'll see he's going to advise that they should have 60,000 officers helping in this. Now, the famous question is, why was there so many questions? There were no businesses in the Midbar. There were no suit stores. There were no jewelry stores. There was no even food stores. There wasn't real estate problems. They were all under the Anani HaKavod. What was it that there were so many shilas about? So it's interesting, in the footnote to the biography of the Chofetz Chaim, they bring down that the Chofetz Chaim said that since there was a din of loy sasiv, that you aren't allowed to marry out of your shevet in that generation, they were quarreling about shidduchim. Everybody wanted the same shidduchim from the same family. And a lot of the questions were in regard to shidduchim. A very interesting pshat. Rashi continues, Ki kaved mimcha, koiv doi rav, it's too heavy, yoisem mikoichacha, more than your strength. So Ata, now, Shma b'koili, listen to my voice, I will advise you, v'yehi elikim imach, and Hashem should be with you. In other words, he said humbly, don't rely on me, ask Hashem if I'm right. Heye Ata la'am mula elikim, you should be the intercessor between the nation and Hashem. Ve'veisa ata es advarim el Elokim, and things that stump everybody else you should bring before Hashem. Ve'izarta esem es achukim ve'esatoris, and you should warn them about the statutes and the laws. Ve'idatalem es aderech yelchu bo, you should inform them the way to go. Ve'esamasa asher yasan, and that which has to be done. Va'ata sechez emikol ha'am, and you should see with your ruach hakodesh. I'm sorry, I'm running. Let's do the targum. V'sazo yason yos kirmaya v'yas araisa usahoda lahon yas orcha dihachon ba v'yas oivoda diyavdun. And Rashi says, I will give you advice ve'yihile elikim imach be'etza. And Hashem should be with you in guidance. Amalai, he said, don't rely on me. I'm giving you an idea. Say he malech b'gvura. Ask Hashem if this is the right way to go. You should be the go-between between the people and Hashem, Shliach, the messenger, Umeilitz beinasam, and the intercessor between them, Lamakim, Vishoel mishpat meita, and you should be asking Hashem the questions, Es advarim, divrei rivaisim, about quarrels. V'ato sechazeh, and now the pasuk says, V'ato sechazeh mikol ha'am, with your ruach hakodesh, you should see from the nation Anshe Chayil, men of wealth, that they won't be swayed by bribery. Yirelikim, God-fearing people. Anshe Emes, people that inspire, people of truth, that inspire people to listen to them. Sonei Vatza, people that hate any type of prophet. V'samta aleim, and place these hand-picked people, sorry alafim, officers of 1,000, so that's 600. Sorry mayors, officers of 100, that's 6,000. Sorry chamishim, officers of 50, that's 12,000. V'sorry asaras, and officers of 10, that's 60,000. A lot of mashpiyim. V'at techazeh mikol ama gavin dechela dechalaya dadinoi gavin dikshovt, the son on the kabla mammon usmane aleim rabbanon alfei rabbane me'avosa rabbane alfin rabbane me'avosa rabbane chamshin and rabbane isoryasa. And Rashi says v'ato sechazeh, with your beruach hakodesh alecha, with the ruach hakodesh that you have, because these are things that otherwise you can't know. How do you really know if somebody is a Yirei Elikim? Anshe Chayil Ashirim, wealthy people, Shein Tzrichim Lahaknif or Lahakir Panim, they don't need to flatter people or to show favor. Anshe Emes, now Rashi says, well, of course they're Anshe Emes. If they're Yirei Elikim, aren't they for sure Anshe Emes? So Rashi says, Elu Balei Haftocha. These are people that have clear bitachon in Hashem. And since they trust in Hashem, there's no way they can be swayed. Or, Elu Bali Haftacha, these are people that inspire confidence. Sheim Kedai Lismeich Al Divreim. They're worthy to be relied upon because people are confident in them. Shal Yedei Ken Yu Divreim Nishmam. And therefore their words will be listened to. Sainei Batza, people that hate prophet. So, Shesainim es mamaynim bedin. They hate to have money through a din Torah. They'd rather lose their money than to go to a din Torah. Any judge that money was taken from him in a court case, lav dainu, that's not a good judge, because he shouldn't have gone to the court case in the first place. Sorry, alafim, hema yeshesh meir sarim. That's 600 officers, 600 officers of 1,000. L'sheish meyas elef for the 600,000 people. Sorry mayas, the officers of 100, so that's 6,000 for 600,000. Sheishes alaf moya. Sorry chamishim, officers of 50, that's 12,000 for 600,000. Shnayim aser alef. Sorry asaras, an officer for each 10. Shishim elef, that's 60,000 such officers. Now, Vayomer Hashem el Yeshayahu, Hashem said to Yeshaya, "Say no likras Achaz, go out to greet Achaz." Remember, Achaz was considering war with the enemies that were coming against him from Shevet Ephraim, from the kings of the north, and from Ritzin and Ben Ramalyo. So he said, go say no lekras ochis ata you ushor yoshuv benecha, which Rashi interprets to mean, and the remnants that you will cause to return and fear Hashem, and because you cause them to return, they will be benecha, they will be like your children, because if you get people to do tshuva, they become like your children. Now where should you meet Achaz? Where should you find the king? El Ktsei Ta'alas, go to the end of the irrigation canal from Habrecha El Yoina, from the uppermost stream, El Mesilas HaKoives, El Mesilas De HaKoives, which is found at the road by a field where those that wash the laundry leave their clothing to dry. V'amarte love, and tell Achaz, he shomer, take heed, don't attack, v'hashket, rather be at rest, al tira, don't be afraid, u'levavcha al yerach, and your heart should not weaken, should not be melt, mishnei zanvoi so'udim ho'asheinim ho'ela, from these two that look dangerous, but they're really just the tails of coals that are smoking but going out. B'chariyov, they who are in rage, Ritzin v'aram uven Ramalyo, Ritzin Aram and Ben Ramalyo, Yan ki yoetz olecha Aram ra, for Aram gave bad counsel to Ephraim, to the tribes of the north, to Ephraim, uven Ramalyo lamer, and to Ben Ramalyo, saying, Na'ala be Yehuda, go and do war with Yehuda, with the Davidic king, with Achaz, unikitzena, and provoke them, v'nafki'ena elenu, and we will split their land amongst us, v'namlich melech b'seicha, and will appoint a king there as Ben Tov Al, a person who we think Tov Aleinu, will choose somebody that we think is good for us. You should know, Achaz, this will never come to be. Kayama Hashem Elikim, Yeshayahu told Achaz, so said Hashem Elikim, lo yisakim, this shall not be established, lo yisiyah, it will not happen. Ki Rosh Aram Damasek, the head of Aram has to do with Damasek, nothing to do with Yerushalayim. V'rosh Damasek Ritzin, the head of Damasek is Ritzin. Uba'id Shishim v'chamei shana, and you should know, in 65 years, there won't be kings of the north. Yechas Ephraim, the kings of the north, will be shattered, and they will disappear from being a nation. The 10 tribes will be exiled by Sancherib. And now we learn the wisdom of Shlomo HaMelech in Mishlei. Beis Geyim, a house of arrogance, a house that is arrogant and lords over the poor, Yisak Hashem, Hashem will remove it. V'yatzev gvul almana, and he will set the border of the widow, because Hashem comes to the defense of the oppressed widow. Hashem is the dayan almanos. Toyavas Hashem machshavos ra. It's an abomination to Hashem, the thoughts and the plots of evil. Utahirim imrei noyim, but it's pure words of sweetness that come without any shrewdness. Oicher beisai beitzea batza, one ruins his house when he's always seeking profit and he's greedy, and therefore he cuts corners and robs and does extortion. But v'seine matanas, to the contrary, he who hates even gifts, yichya, will live. Leiv tzaddik yegelanos. The heart of the righteous thinks before answering. It's like I heard from Ramila that his Rebbe, and I found out that he was referring to Rav Isaac Sher in Slobodka, his Rebbe never spoke before thinking what he would say. But upirisham, the mouth of the wicked, yabia rise, utter evil things without thinking. Rachai Hashem erisham. Hashem is distant from the wicked, so therefore when they need something, He's not to be found. Usvilas tzadikim, but the prayers of the righteous are yishma, are heard, right? Like it says, Shema Hashem es kol oyavav. Karav Hashem l'chol karav l'chol asher kruv emes. Ma'orei nayim, one whose eyes, who is illuminated with Torah, Rashi says, Yisamach leiv, has a happy heart, because he knows what to answer people. Shmua Taiva, a good news to dashin etzem, causes the bone to swell, like the Gemara tells us in Gittin. When Vespasian heard that he was going to become emperor, he couldn't put on his shoe because his foot swelled. And now we learned the 7th parak of Bava Metzia, a very interesting parak. I made a bracha already. Hasoicher es hapoyelin. If, let's say, someone hires workers, and he says to them, after he hired them, he says, Lahashkim, I want you to come before dawn, or Laharav, and I want you to stay late. You just can't say that. If the custom is that people work just from daybreak to nightfall, ain't a rasha l'chayfim. He can't make them come earlier and stay later. In place where you're supposed to feed your workers, yazan. L'sapik b'mesika, if not only you give them bread, but you also give them relish to eat with the bread, yasapik, you should afford that as well. Hakol k'minig hamadina, everything goes according to the custom of the country. Ma'aseh Rabbi Yochanan ben Masya, there was an incident with Rabbi Yochanan ben Masya, she'amar lebnai, he instructed his son, tzei schar lanu pa'elim, go, we need workers for the day, go and hire us workers. Halach, he went to pasuk lem mezainis, and the son promised to feed them without any further details. When he came to his father told him, that's not the way to hire workers. Amalei b'ni, my child, even if you give them like the meal of shleima in his heyday, you didn't fulfill your requirement. Because these are the children, Shem b'nei Avram, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov. You know, Avram used to feed guests, so you have to be more specific. Before they start, so you could yet change the details of the arrangement, say go and tell them, you should know I'm going to give you bread and beans, bread and legumes. Reb Shimon Gamliel says it's not necessary, because he only is expected to give like the custom. We know that when workers do work, they're allowed to eat from what they're working on, only at a specific time. The following workers have a license to eat while they're working biblically. When they're working with stuff that's attached to the ground, as they're doing the last job, as they're cutting it down. And when something is detached from the ground, they're allowed to eat from it before the work is completed, because once the work is completed, it's chayiv and meiser. And this license is only from things that grow in the ground. The elu from the ground. The elu she'ein eichlim. The following, they're not allowed to eat while they work. When they're working with something that's attached to the ground, before it is finished. Like, for example, if they're weeding, if they're hoeing, and something that's uprooted from the ground, after the work is finished. So they're working on something that doesn't go from the ground. They don't have any license to eat while they're working. Let's say he was working with his hands, but not with his feet. For example, he was cutting something. So he was working with his hands. Or baraglav avaloi biyadav, or he was working with his feet, trotting upon grapes to crush them, but not with his hands. Afilu b'kseifa, even if he's carrying something with his shoulder, he's allowed to eat from it. How is that oichel? Rabbi Yehuda, no, achiyasa biyadav baraglav. You have to work with both your hands and your feet, because we learn it out from shor, and the shor is working both with its forelegs and its hind legs. In other words, its hands and its feet. If he was working on figs, he can't partake of the grapes. If he's working on the grapes, he can't partake from the figs. If he's working in a field and he's working on inferior stuff, he could refrain from eating until he starts working on the good stuff. Of course, he can only eat while he's working. However, in order that the owner shouldn't lose out, and while they're working, if they start eating while they're working, they'll pause in the work, and the owner will lose out. In order to return lost time to the owner, on their trip when they're walking from one road to the next, even though they're not working at the time, they could eat. This way they won't stop in the middle of working. Or when they're returning from the gas, from the press, where they, the vat of grapes, where they were working on the grapes. Now a donkey, it says, you can't muzzle a show when he's threshing. A donkey is allowed to eat when he's carrying a load. He's allowed to eat from that load, kishi parekes, until he is unloaded. One who works with cucumbers could eat even a dinner's worth. V'kaisevis, one who works with dates could eat afilu b'dinner, even a dinner's worth, even if it's more than he's paid. The worker cannot eat more than his salary. The Chacham Matir and the Chacham permit it. However, we tell the person, don't eat too much, because then you won't be hired again. He shouldn't be gluttonous, because then he'll close the door from people hiring him. A person could make up, you know what, I won't eat. I have a biblical license to eat. I won't eat, give me more money. Or he could also make up when his sons and daughters who are adults are working, he can make up for them, because they could be meichel. Or or his servant or maidservant who's adult, he could make up that they won't eat, because they could be meichel, and then he'll get more money. Or on his wife. They have intellect and they could be meichel. He can't make up that his son or daughters who are minors won't eat while they're working, or his servant or maidservant while they're minors. He can't make up that his animal won't work and will be muzzled, and he should get paid more, because they don't have das to be meichel. If he hires workers to work with his fourth year produce of the tree, and in this case, it can't be eaten because it has to be brought up to Yerushalayim. So if he told the worker it's neter avai, then hariyelu lo yochel, they can't eat because they knew that this is crops that you're not allowed to eat. Im lo yadian, if he didn't inform them that it was neter avai, then we put the burden on him to redeem it so that they'll be able to eat it, because otherwise it's a mekach tais. Similarly, nisparsui gulav, he had a cake of figs that were already pressed and nigmar malaktan, and then they separated, so they needed to be pressed again. But once they were already made into gulei dveil, they're chayiv and meiser. On nispatku chav Yosef, his cask was sealed, but they got open. So the worker, when he works, can't eat from it because it's chayiv and meiser. It's nigmar malaktan. If he didn't inform them that you should know this stuff was not was already nigmar malaktan, then meiser, then he has to take off meiser and allow him to partake from it. Otherwise, it's a mekach tois. Shaimrei peiris eichlin, those that are guarding fruit. Now this is already detached, and therefore he has no biblical right to be able to eat. Shaimrei peiris eichlin mehilchas medina. They could eat because of the local custom, but not right from the Torah. Because as Rav says, Shomer is not considered doing an action. Now, Arba Shomer Heim, as we know, throughout Shas, there's 4 categories of watchmen. Shomer Chinam, one who watches for free, Vashoyel, one who borrows something, Noisei Sacher, one who is a paid watchman, Vasoicher, and one who is rents. Shomer Chinam, who is potter, as long as he's not negligent, Nishba alakol, he could swear that it was stolen or it was lost or there was an accident and he's exempt. Vashoyel, but the shoyel is mishalim esakol. He pays for everything. He pays if it was stolen or was lost, even if there was an einus. V'noisei sacher v'aseicher, the one who is a paid watchman and one who is rents, nishban ala shvura v'ala shvuya v'ala mesa. He swears if it was broken by a einus, or if it was taken by an armed bandit, or if it dies. But he pays as a haveda v'esagneva, even if it was lost or if it was stolen. Zeiv echad, if a person is a shepherd and is only one wolf, then ain't einus. That's not an einus, because he should have been able to ward off one wolf. Shnei zevim, if there's 2 wolves, that's an einus. Rabbi Yudai b'shas mishlachas evim, if there was abnormal swarms of wolves, it was a time of divine wrath, then af zev echad einus. Even one wolf, because they're bold, is an einus. Shnei kalavim ain't einus. 2 dogs is not an einus, because the shepherd should be able to ward them off. Yadua Abavli, Oimer Mishim Rameir, Yadua the Babylonian said in name Rameir, Meiruach Achas, if the 2 dogs come from one direction, ain't einus. Mishtei Ruches, but if they come at him from 2 directions, so he doesn't know where to turn, that's an einus. That's considered an einus. Halistim bandits, harizeh einus, that's considered an einus. Now, because he's not open bandits that didn't come in stealth, it's an einus because he doesn't have to put himself into danger. Ho'ari, a lion, v'adoiv, a bear, v'anomer, a leopard, v'abardus. Bardus is either a cheetah or a viper. Some say it's a hyena. Some say it's a polecat. V'anochesh, and a snake, harizeh einus. These are all considered an einus. Now, emasai bizman shebo me'alem, when they come upon him, but if he took the animals to a dangerous place where there were beasts or listim or known bandits, then ein einus. He can't complain that he's an einus because he shouldn't have gone there. Mesa kedak, if the animal dies itself, harizeh einus, that's an einus. Sikfa v'mesa, but if he afflicted the animal, keeping it in the heat too long or keeping it in the cold too long, or beating it, ain't einus. It's not an einus. Also, l'rosh tzoikin, if the animal escaped to a cliff, v'nafla, and fell, harizeh einus. Hella l'rosh tzoikin, but if the shepherd brought the animal to cliffs, v'nafla v'mesa, and it fell and died, ain't einus. Now, a watchman could stipulate to have his own terms. So, masna shomer chinam liyes patim mishvua. A shomer that's guarding for free could say, look, I'll watch it, but I don't want to have to swear. The shoyel could say, look, I'll guard it, I'll borrow it if you allow me, that I shouldn't be chayiv to pay for einsim. The paid watchman and the renter could stipulate that he should be exempt from a shvua, or melashalom, or that he should be exempt from paying for Geneva Vaveda. It's all according to the terms that you make up. Now, if you stipulate against what it says in the Torah, Tanoa Batal. The condition is batal and the declaration is chal. So if a person says, I'm a nazir on the condition that I should be able to drink wine, so that's going against the Torah. So he becomes a nazir, but the condition is nullified and he can't drink wine. Any condition that has the action first, Tanoa Batal. So therefore, if he says, you should be Mekudeshes and give me $200, so since the action, the Kedushin, is before the Tanai is batal, and she doesn't have to give the $200. If the condition could be upheld at the end, and he makes the condition properly in the beginning, Tanai Kaim, that's a good condition. But if he says, if you climb to the heaven, it should be a good get, since that's something that she can't climb to the heaven, she can't swallow a reed that's 100 amas long, so the Tanai is batal and the get is Kaim. The Gemara tells us, in Bava Metzia, Daf Ayin Aleph, Tani Rav Yosef, Im Kesef Talve Es Ami, if you give a loan to my nation, Esa Oni Imach, the poor person with you. And from the different terms in the pasuk, Esa Oni Imach, as Ami, we learn that there is a totem pole in where you should give your money to first. Ami v'nachri, if it's a question of giving it to a Jew or a guy, Ami kaidim, you should give it to a Jew first. Ani v'asher, a poor man or a rich man, Ani kaidim, the poor man is first. Ani yachav aniyei ercha, a poor person in your family and poor person of the city, Ani yachav kaidim, aniyei mishpacha comes first. Aniyei ercha v'aniyei yeracheres, the poor of your city and the poor of other cities, Aniyei yerecha kaidim, the poor of your city comes first. And this is a very important thing. There has to be a system, because if everybody is going to give to their alma mater, their yeshiva, and nobody gives to the yeshiva of their own city, who's going to take care of the yeshiva of their city? That's why when it comes to your shul, you have to take care of your shul. Other shuls are not going to take care of your shul. They have to take care of their shul. Right? So the burden rests on your thing. Amamar, Ami v'nachri, a Jew or a guy, Ami kaidim. A Jew comes first. So the Gemara said, Pshita, isn't that obvious? Rav Nachman Amali Huna, Rav Nachman says it was told to me by Huna, even if the Nachri is promising interest, and the Jew, of course, doesn't give interest, you should still lend to the Jew. Come and see the blindness of those that give loans with ribbis. I mean, they're so blind. Adam Kari L'Chaver Rasha, if Chatzkel calls Shmuel a wicked person, whoa! Shmuel will have it in for Chatzkel. Yored imay l'chayev. Yet, the Hey Mevim Edom, Chatzkel gives a loan with interest, and he brings witnesses, the lavler and a scribe, the kulmas and a quill, the dioi and ink, the kaisvin v'chaismim, and witnesses sign with the scribe writes and the witnesses sign. Ploini zeh, Chatzkel gives this loan with ribbis, Kafar Belekei Yisrael. He's denying the God of Israel. So he's essentially writing and signing that he's a Rasha, and he doesn't mind. Tanya Reb Shimon Elazar Aimer, told me sheyesh le'mais. If somebody has money, umalva isam shaloi b'ribbis, and he gives it as a loan without interest, olav hakasav Aimer kaspay lanasan b'neshech, his money he gave without taking interest, and he didn't take a bribe from one who is innocent. Doing these, he will never falter. Now that implies that if somebody takes interest, he will falter. Whoever gives interest along with interest, their estate will falter. So the Gemara says, but we see people who give loans without interest and they have setbacks. People give loans without interest, become mismaitatin, and their property has setbacks. Those are temporary setbacks. But those that take interest, they falter and they never have a revival. Tan Rabbanan, al tikach me'itoy neshef v'sarbis. You can't take from him interest. Aval atanasa loy orev. But you could be a guarantor to a loan with interest. So the Gemara says, orev l'man, a guarantor for who? Ilaim orev l'Yisrael, a guarantor for a Jew that takes interest. That's not true. Vatana elu oivrim b'loy saseh. You know who's over a lav for a deal with interest? Hamalva, the one who gives the loan. V'aloiva, the one that takes the loan. Ha'orav, the guarantor. V'eidim, and the witnesses. Everybody is in the crime. Ela l'nachrei. Here we're talking about where a yid takes a loan from a guy. So a yid takes a loan from a guy, a Jew could be a guarantor of such a loan. But wait a second. The kavan de dine de nachri. Since the law of the Gentiles are the azul basar arva, that the guy could go directly to the guarantor, and then the guarantor goes and collects from the lova, from the borrower, then it ends up that the yid is going to collect interest. Then the yid is going to take interest from the other yid. Rav Shesha says they accept that to work with the din of Yisrael, that you can't go to the guarantor first. So the Gemara says, well, if the guy is willing to accept the law of Yisrael, so then he shouldn't do interest either. Then he shouldn't take interest either. He accepts not to take from the guarantor first, but he's not ready to forgo on the interest. And now we learn a very interesting Zohar. We say this Haftarah on the Tanis. Kaya amar Hashem la sarisim. So said Hashem to the eunuchs, to those that are sterile. Man sarisim. What does it mean to those that are sterile? So here, the Zohar homiletically explains, this means Talmidei Chacham that behave like they're sterile 6 days of the week and are away learning and abstain from intimacy with their wives. Ilan inun chavaraya, these are the sages, the mishtadlei ba'araisa, they're learning Torah, u'misose garmayu kol shita yom d'shapsa, they act with their bones as if they're sterile 6 days of the week, la'an ba'araisa, wearying themselves in the study of Torah and not being with their wives. Ubelel yodeshabsa, on the night of Shabbos, Friday night, mezorze garmayu, they strengthen and invigorate their bones, bezivuga delain, and mate with their wives, mishun diyadei rozi ilah, they know a lofty secret, and that is, they know that Friday night is when Kutch Baricha Ushrinta unite. Bishata de Matronisa, when the queen is Davgis Bamalka, mates with the king. That's Kutch Baricha Ushrinta, and therefore they want to mate then as well. The Inun Chavraya de Yodon Razada, and these Torah scholars that know this secret, Mechavnun Libayulamem Nusa de Marehan, they schedule their hearts to the faith of their Creator, and they're blessed with seed of their loins on that night. V'do d'chsiv asher yishmeru. It says asher yishmeru es shabsoisai. And here it means they wait for Shabbos. K'mo da'at amar v'oviv shomer es hadavar. And Yaakov waited for the dream to be fulfilled. So here they wait for the Shabbos. The ikran sarisim vade, they're considered like they're sterile. Begin l'chakol l'shabsa, they wait till Shabbos, la'ashkecha rava d'mareyan, to find the favor of their Creator. D'chsiv uvacharu, they choose ba'asher chafotzti, with that which I desire. My ba'asher chafotzti, that's dozivuga de matronisa, when kutchabarichu ushchinte come together. Umachazikim bebrisi, and they hold on to my covenant. Kulachad, it's all one idea. Bevrisi stam, bris refers to the bechina of Side, and that's Friday. Remember we said that every day of the week is a different sphera, and Friday is Side, and that comes together, the Side comes together with the king, and you have that fusion. Zakor chulkei, fortunate is the portion, demand is kaddish b'kedusha da, one who sanctifies himself with this sanctity, v'yada razada, and knows about this secret. Tochazi, come and see. Ksiv sheishes yomim tavoid, 6 days you should work, v'asisa kol malachtecha, and you should do all the work. V'yayim hashvi, and the 7th day Shabbos la'Hashem alikecha. So kol malachtecha, during the 6 days you do all your work. Be'inon shita yoimei, and the 6 days of the week from Sunday through Friday, aviditayu d'bnei nosha. That's the time where people are involved in their work, in their business. Ubegin hai mila, and because at that time the Yetzer Hara is very in the open, loy mizdavgei chavrai, they don't mate. Bar bezimna, the lo yishtakach may have the tayu, and they're not working the bnei nasha, and there's no Yetzer Hara. El avidite the kutch, only the business of Hashem. Oh my avidite, what's the business of Hashem? Zivuga de matronisa, the mating of the queen with the malka, kutch shchinte, la paka nishmosin kadshin laoma, kadishin laoma, which causes holy neshamas to come out to the world. Begin kach, and because of this, Bahai Lelia, on that night, Chavraya miskache b'kedusha d'mareyan, they sanctify themselves with the sanctity of their master, umechavnei libayu, and they schedule their hearts, v'nafke b'nei male b'nin kadishin, and they have, on this Friday night, they conceive and produce holy children, the lo satan lemino l'smaila, they don't sway to the right or to the left, begin the malko matronisa, because benin the malko matronisa, children of the king and the queen. Val ilan ksiv bonim atem laHashem alikeichem. You are children when there's the synthesis of Hashem alikeichem. Kutzeberichu v'araisa laHashem alikeichem vaday. It actually means the synthesis of Kutzeberichu v'araisa. Begin the ilan ikrin benin delay. This is considered his children. Benin the children of malko matronisa, of the king and his queen. V'adatayu d'chavrayu, and the mindset of these scholars, the Yodon Raza that know these secret, da b'da mistaptan, they cleave at the time that Kutzeberichu v'araisa cleaves. Ubegin kach ikrin benin l'Kutzeberichu, these children are special children of Hashem. V'hani inun the alma miskaima beginayu, and these children, the world exists because of them. The kad slak alma bedina, and when the world is being judged with midas hadin, istakel kutzeberichu be'inon benai, Hashem looks at these children, o merachem al alma, and has mercy on the people. Valdok siv kula zera emes, they are seeds of truth. Zera emes vadai, these are seeds, mamish of truth, because they have the stamp. Remember, chaysamei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu emes. These have the seal of Hashem on them. Mao emes iska kadisha shleimasa, the perfect signet of Hashem. K'mo da'at amar titein emes liYaakov. There should be emes by Yaakov. Bekula echad, and it all refers to one thing. that these children have the seal of emes, or begin a kach, and because of this zera emes vadai, they are considered definitely seed of truth. They have Hashem's seal of truth upon them. And now the Musar warns us that in Pirkei Avos it says that we shouldn't frequent ourselves with talking with women. Remember, women, besides of the lust factor and the sin factor, is also the fact that women don't have the feeling of obligation to use time for Torah, because they don't have the mitzvah of Torah. So the Musar advises us, Al tar b'sicha isha, don't talk a lot with women, Be'ishta yamru, even with your own wife, when it's not necessary for the children, for shalom bayis, for your responsibilities to your wife. Kal v'chaymer eishes chaveru, surely with another woman, with your friend's wife. Mikan amru chachamim, from here the chachamim say, Kol amar b'sicha me'isha, whoever speaks too much to women, goyrim ra la'atzma, he causes evil for himself. Baitel medivrei Torah, he wastes time from Torah. V'seifa yorish gehenim, and at the end he inherits Gehenna. Hi, woe, says the Musar. Psaim, those that are simple, uschalim, and fools. Asher kairin oishaymin as a mishnah azu, they read this mishnah or they hear it in shul, the Beis HaKnesses, ve'enon samim alev, and they don't take it to heart. U'b'yaiser, and the more so, sheshiru chacham, the chacham warn us, and heim nesayin acher, and they go backwards. They don't pay attention. Hari Rabbi Seinu HaKadoshim Aimim, our rabbis, our holy ones, say, Gairim ra la'atzmai. This causes evil. Why? Shesitra achra, the evil side, the other side, anikus ra, nidbekes by, cleaves to him. Val yedei zeh baitel b'divrei Torah, it leads him to waste time from Torah, which is more serious than any other crime. Asher bittul Torah chamer, from avodah zarah gila roisa shvichas dam, from idolatry, immorality, and bloodshed. Seifa yorish Gehenim, at the end he'll inherit Gehenim. Diktiku Rabbi Seinu Zichron Levracha Leimer Seifa, at the end, that means at the end of his life. First, it won't happen right away, Gehenim. Kibeis B'tirasai, first, Yelech Medechi El Dechi. He'll go from one suffering to another. Biyad Malachi Chabala Achzarm, in the hands of destructive angels that are cruel. They won't give him any respite. And after many years, they'll take him to take his inheritance. Not only will he have his Gehenim, but he'll also be Yorish the Gehenim of Tzadikim. A person should be shocked at Kama Gavra Ivoran Eine Apsan, how much blindness there are to the fools. Shemaliyim ayim medivrei Rabbi Seinu, they hide themselves from the advice of the rabbis HaKadoshim, of holy ones. Now, if you would ask them, do you believe in the words of the sages in Pirkei Avos? Yoshiva devadei, they would say, of course I believe in it. It's all Torah's emes. Moshe kibbel Torah Sinai. Sayem lepech, but they act. Their actions belie what they're saying. They don't take their advice. Or perhaps shebazusam, in their arrogance, they're not worried about the punishments. They're not concerned about the future punishments. Rachmana litzlan, God forbid. Hashem should save us. And finally, the Rambam tells us in Kriya Shema, brachas elu, the blessings of Kriya Shema, Yitzarar, and Havarabba, and Marvaravim, Im Shor Kol HaBrachas HaAruchas B'fi Kol Yisrael, and the other brachas that are arranged in the mouths of all of Klal Yisrael. Ezra HaSefer Beis Dinai Tiknam. Ezra HaSefer and his Bezdin enacted them, the Anshe Knesses HaGdayla. Ve'ein Adam Rashay Lifchais Mem, you can't do less, V'loi La'isef Aleim, or more. Makom she'eschinu lachtem b'baruch, if they say you should say Baruch Atah Hashem Yotzei HaMa'oros, and Rashi shaloi lachtem. You can't do it without Baruch Atah Hashem. Or makom she'eschinu shaloi lachtem, where they said not to finish, like Sha'akol Niyah B'dvaro, and Rashi lachtem. You can't say Baruch Atah Hashem Sha'akol Niyah B'dvaro. Makom she'eschinu shaloi leftayach b'baruch, where they enacted not to start, like by Avarabba or Avasailam, and Rashi Liftayach, you can't start with Baruch Atah Hashem. Makom she'eskinu Liftayach, like Baruch Atah Hashem, L'kein Melech Haolam Yotzer Or, and Rashi Shaloi Liftayach. You're not allowed to do it without the Baruch Atah Hashem. Kol Shel Davar, the general principle is, Kol HaMeshanim HaMatbeh Shetavu Chacham B'Brachas, if you change from the formula that the Chachamim made by Brachas, you're making a mistake, and you have to make the bracha again according to the proper formula. If you don't say emes v'yatzim in the morning, the emes v'emuna ba'arvis, and emes v'emuna in the night, you didn't fulfill your requirement. Hiktam bracha shniya lebracha rishon, if you said avasayim before Yotzer Or, bein bayom bein balaylo, you said avasayim before Ma'arav Aravim, bein lefoneh, bein la'achreah, whether it's the brachas before Kriya Shema or the brachas afterwards, yotza. Why? Lefi she'ein seder b'brachas. There's no order. The chronological order is not ma'akiv. B'shachris, in the morning, pasach Yotzer Or, if you started out Baruch Atah Hashem, L'kein Melech Haolam Yotzer Or, but v'sayim Baruch Atah Hashem Ma'arav Aravim, lo yotza. Pasach b'Ma'arav Aravim, if you started Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam, and you had in mind to say Ma'arav Aravim, you were up the whole night, so you started saying it thinking you're davening Ma'arav, but you caught yourself v'siyam b'Yotzer Or, and you finished it off correctly, Yatza, you fulfill the mitzvah. Or be'erev, in the evening, if you just woke up from the sleep, and the evening, Pasach b'Ma'arav Aravim, you started Baruch Atah Hashem, but you finished v'sayim b'Yotzer Or, Baruch Atah Hashem Yotzer HaMa'oros, by Ma'ariv, of course, will Yotzer. Pasach b'Yotzer Or, if you started because you just woke up and you said Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam, you were going to say Yotzer Or, but you caught yourself v'sayim b'Ma'arav Aravim and finished it off correctly, Yotzer. Shekol HaBrachas holchas achar chasimasim. All the brachas go according to the way you conclude. It's really a pleasure to learn with all of you. Thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful evening.